Okay, well, I, I'd like to kick this off if everyone's okay with getting started. I suspect we'll have a few more people joining in, but welcome everyone. I'm Beth Gordon from Pace University and sitting here with Meg Burke, who is one of our interns who just became full-time. Some of you may have worked with Sam Egan, and sadly she left us to start a new life chapter in Kansas, but we all miss her, but we're very happy to have Meg kind of working with us and filling that position for us now. So it's great. I recognize some of the names, but if participants don't mind typing in where you're from in the chat, that helps us keep a record of where everyone's from, and especially if you happen to be sitting with a colleague, just note that as well so we know who's attending. And thanks so much to Keith from CUNY Purchase for hosting us in Adobe and helping us with all the tech issues here. Keith had the good suggestion to mute the mic when you're not speaking, but certainly we can share the microphone and give anyone who wants to speak the opportunity. So I see you're posting your introductions, which is great. Thank you. And our agenda has Christina up first with Mahara 1.10 updates. Christina, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am ready to go.
Great. Okay, we'll turn it over to you then. Thanks.
Sure. No, my webcam doesn't want to work this morning. So welcome also from my end, the New Zealand end of the world, to our first fall MAC meeting or spring MAC meeting. And thank you very much to Beth, her team, and also Keith for organizing it and making it possible for everyone to join in. I'd just like to take a few minutes time, because we have a full agenda today, to just point out some highlights of Mahara 1.10, which we released just a couple of weeks ago. And there are altogether quite a lot of new features that we have developed, 36, and some of them are very small, but others are quite large and involved. We also fixed 240 bugs, and now we also have a song which most of you probably have already heard. And what I'd just like to do is go through 6 of those features that I think stand out quite heavily, because they have a lot of new things that community members wanted to have for a long time, or things that came up very recently. And what you see here directly is the messages to multiple people. That was development work out of Germany from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. And that now allows you to send notifications, messages to more than one person, and also to reply to more than one person. Tobias also implemented that you can now see all the messages that you sent through the system, which was not really easy to see in the past, because you never really knew what you had sent to others, and that they replied back and then you replied again. And so now this has been made really easy to do, and enhances the experience of actually also knowing what you've received, what you have sent, and also being able to send notifications and kind of almost emails to more than one person, and therefore reach multiple people at once. Another very new feature is that you can drag and drop pages into collections. This was relatively small work, but does enhance the usability. You can still also click the checkboxes in order to put pages into your collection, but you can also use the all-familiar drag and drop that we have during the page editing process, therefore making it easier to position these pages within your collection, to reorder them, and also with the little links at the top. Let me just point it out here. The all and none links, you can also directly put all your pages into a collection and therefore be done more quickly. Yes, Keith, and reordering of those pages within the collection via drag and drop as well. That is correct. A third nice feature is that we have a simple text box again. Several versions ago, we converted regular text boxes to notes so that you could reuse them in your portfolios. Now you can also attach files to it. You can attach a license, you can have tags, and you can have feedback on them. And that was a feature request that at the time was wanted by a number of users in the community, because it was not possible then to repurpose a text box they had written, and a number of people had used these text blocks to also write quite a bit of text that they wanted to repurpose in other pages. However, over time it has been shown that this implementation was not really ideal, because people still wanted to have simple text boxes that are not kept in their notes section. And therefore, this was implemented. And what you have now in Mahara 1.10 is that you can have a very simple text that just looks like this here on the screen. You just have a title and your editor window, but you don't have any other features. You can save that and therefore use that in order to just have short descriptions for other blocks, or just point something out that you want to display on this particular page, but you cannot reuse that on another page unless, of course, you copy and paste the content in. We've also kept the more elaborate notes because they do have their purpose, especially, for example, when you set up a bunch of template pages and want to repurpose instructions or any other things multiple times, and maybe also when you want to link or create the same text and then have that available in multiple pages. So both are currently there. Outside in the content chooser, the standard simple text block is the more prominent one, but you'll also find the notes one very easily. And because we received feedback that a lot of people kind of just got confused by the many notes they have in their portfolio because everything was kept, there is also a converter in the administrative interface where you can convert all your current notes into simple text blocks. That means any note that is not being used in another page, that does not have license information attached to it or feedback or any other things, will be converted into a simple text block. And therefore, the note section will also be shorter in the future. What we've also heard a lot of times from the community is that it is not possible to adjust the dashboard page, the profile page, and also to a certain degree the group home page. Meaning that an administrator or a site administrator, a server administrator always needed to make that change, or a site administrator needed to log in with a specific login in order to make changes to the dashboard template and also to the profile page. This can now be done on the site administrator interface. And there you can create your own dashboard and your own profile so that you can take out any of the blocks that are currently there that you don't want to have there, and put others on there that you prefer to have there. One caveat, though, is that it does not work for existing pages, because users could already have made changes to their dashboard, profile page, and also to group home pages. So it only works for new users and also for new groups that are being set up. However, that is still a very good functionality, especially when you start out using Mahara, that you set up your system directly how you want it to be. And one of the very big features that we have in Mahara 1.10 is archiving of portfolio submissions. That is development work funded by the University of Canberra, and it allows you to archive portfolios that have been submitted to a group on the server, and also retrieve those files easily. The archiving needs to be turned on in the group settings, and it is only available, like the submissions in general, for staff and administrators. But it allows you to make the submissions available afterwards, so that if you use Mahara for assessment purposes, you can keep a copy of what the student submitted at a time. We do not distinguish whether it's a draft or a final submissions or things like that, but anything that has been submitted in a group that has archiving turned on will be saved on the server and can then be archived offsite, say at the end of a term or at the end of an academic year. You can also export all the data that you see in the table in CSV format, meaning that you also get the path to the files where the individual portfolios are located. This new functionality also brings with itself an export queue, because when 10, 20, or 30 portfolios or more are archived at the same time, this might eat quite a bit of server resources. And so all the archiving will be placed in a queue, and then the release of the portfolios is only made once the server has finished the queue and has gone through it. If there are any problems with the export, there will be a notification, and you can restart the export again. And the export queue also works for Leap2A portfolios that users export themselves, if that functionality is turned on in the site administrator settings. And these two features are currently still experimental because they require quite a bit of testing, especially load testing, and seeing how everything works out in reality and when there are submissions made and releases made. So we are especially interested in hearing from you and getting your feedback on that functionality, in case there are things that still need to be tweaked for this experimental feature. Laurie, it does create a copy of the student page in the sense of the portfolio that the student submitted for assessment purposes or for feedback into a group. That will be placed on the server, and therefore you could also give it back to the students at a later stage for importing if they wanted to get back to an earlier stage. This is part of a feature for Canberra that we are working on. The second part could not yet be finished, which would be to integrate it with the Mahara assignment submission plugin, so that also portfolios submitted to Moodle can be archived during the release process. And now, last but not least, one feature that a lot of people were waiting for is to have more modern social media accounts available in the profile instead of MSN account, AIM account, IRC, and ICQ, and so on. So this feature was developed by Gregor, and now you can add any social network to your Mahara account and have links available in a blog where people can then just simply go to your profile. So what's coming up next for the next half year? Well, we've already started working on the new features for the next release. And one big change that you will be hearing from us is that we went over to a different versioning system for Mahara to indicate the releases. Currently, we are on one where that doesn't really follow any particular rule very strictly. And so we are moving to a date-based release numbering system, which means in our case that the next release will be 1504 meaning that it was released in the year 2015 and in the month of April. With that, we hope that it'll be easier for users to, and also institutions and site administrators to know when their Mahara version was released, how long it will be supported, because calculating 1.5 years is quite easy in this case, because it means the 15.04 version is supported until 16.10, so until October 2016. And since our current versioning system doesn't really show you any way whether that's a big release or a small release, we thought it might be better to have a database system. So that's what we are moving to. And so we are not making a huge jump in terms of functionality if you think kind of going from version 1 to version 15, but it is a different versioning system. Yes, Roger, we will have minor points as well for security, and those will be 15.04.1. And so that system is still being retained so that you can see easily what are security patches. And that's pretty much all from me. If you have any other questions, please let me know on Twitter or via email or in the Mahara forums. And I look forward to hearing from you what you think about the features that were implemented for 1.10 and what your plans also are for using those, or how you're using them, implementing them, working with them with your students. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. That was really very interesting. We appreciate your time pulling all that together, and the new features look great. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Roger to talk about assessment a little bit. At some of the previous MUG meetings, I see we have some new folks here today, which is terrific. Just so that you all know, we've had some themes bubble up, and two of the themes that people seem very interested in are assessment and templates, and they kind of go hand in hand. So we have asked Roger and others to kind of share how their institutions are grappling with both assessment and templates, or either or, through Mahara, and hopefully this will generate some good discussion among our group. So with that, I will turn it over to Roger.
Right, hi, can you all hear me okay? Hello? Yes, everybody, good. Right, hopefully you can see a PDF as well that I've shared on screen. Yep, you've all got it, good. Okay, so the Mahara assessment, built-in assessment, where students have to submit the page and then it's locked, and then the tutor marks it or reviews it or whatever and then unlocks it and sends it back to the student, has been a real problem for us in the past, because nothing wrong with the technology but the human beings. People forget to unlock students' portfolios. If it's a draft submission, students may send in a copy of their page, but send in their page before they've made a copy of it, so they can't continue working. There's all sorts of odd issues like that. We've also got to work within our regulations, our assessment regulations, which also causes a few issues. So what we've come up with is a different approach to working with assessment. So what we do is get the students, this is what I'm sharing on screen is just a sort of a how-to guide at the moment, so it should give you an idea. What we ask the students to do is first create a secret URL of the portfolio they're working on. So once they've generated the secret URL, there it is, they can then copy it. What we then ask them to do is go over and export either their page or the collection as an HTML file, standard HTML website. From there, we then send the students off to upload that zipped up file into our Moodle VLE, which is 0.5 on the screen there. And what that does means that we've got a locked down copy, like a snapshot of their work at a point in time, that the exam board will accept and the externals will accept. And the good thing with that is the student can carry on working on their portfolio afterwards, keep it, do what they want with it. The examiners get a locked-in-time version that they know the students can no longer play with. And as far as our regulations go, it's like uploading a Word document or any other file. It is simply a file. So it takes it away from being a portfolio in that sense. Now, obviously, an HTML file doesn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles and the videos and, you know, links in and live blogs and all sorts of stuff, but it gives you the general impression of where the student is at that point in time. What we also do is ask the student to share. So our Moodle VLE, when students upload a file, there's an option to give them a text box as well. So in the text box, they paste the secret URL. So what the member of staff can then do is see the live All Singing All Dancing page or collection or whatever it is, but also have a date-stamped version as well, which is completely separate and can be backed up separately and archived separately, completely away from Mahara. So once the student's done that, pasted in their URL of their secret URL and uploaded their assignment, that's it, job done. The assignment is uploaded and the student gets to keep their work going on their portfolio. And it's particularly useful where students are having to do formative submission points where, you know, show work in progress or whatever. It's also quite useful for external examiners to be confident that that is the only version that they're seeing. Question from Keith there: how easy was it to get students and faculty to use this workflow? Well, we've got another document for staff of how to set up their assignments, and we've made it as simple as possible. Sort of step 1, 2, 3, 4, tick these boxes, and off you go. And this workflow is for students, so 7 steps there. What we do is work with the teaching staff to make sure all students have a go first. So they've had a practice, they've had a practice run, they've handed in a formative one. The other problem we had in the past, which we're going to now review because the plugins from Moodle to Mahara have got an awful lot better. We had problems back with Moodle 1.8 or 9 or whenever it was, quite a long time ago, and with Mahara version, you name it, 1.3, 1.4, quite a long time ago, where we used the assessment plugin tool that was available for Moodle, and we ended up in a right problem once when we had an upgrade of Moodle but not Mahara, and the compatibility went, and we had lots of locked portfolios. So there's all sorts of issues that was of our own making in a lot of ways, because the system did work beautifully for a while, and then our upgrades went out of sync and the plugin stopped working, and we ended up with all sorts of problems. But they've been redeveloped. That was a few years ago, so they've been redeveloped, and that means we've got sort of an opportunity to review what we do and review if we go back to a Moodle Mahara plugin, sort of Moodle sort of plugin methodology of submitting assessments. But I think the main problem we had was students would send in an assessment, it would be locked, and then they were stuck and they couldn't do any more work on it, and that's really quite annoying for students. And it's a really silly thing, but we have had days when somebody, you know, a member of staff may have gone sick or left or done whatever, and somebody in admin sat there basically unlocking hundreds of portfolios, which isn't very good. So yeah, I'll sort of pause there, and I realise time's going on and there's more to do. So any questions, you can type them. All of these documents are available on our help site. So I will just stop sharing that so I can give everything back to everyone, and type our help site address in the chat window, and let the next person have a go.
Thanks, Roger. You've got us all thinking here. We're eager to see if we could do something similar. We definitely have similar needs to be able to sort of lock, zip, and assess. So we appreciate that. I think what we're going to do in the interest of time is pass over our PACE update and ask Keith's colleagues to do their part if they're ready to go. Because we did want to hear an update from SUNY Purchase and the great work you're doing.
So, hi, this is Karen. Am I on?
Yeah, we're going to get some feedback though.
Okay. So, I'm not actually totally sure what would be most useful to you guys. I'm going to talk a little bit about some work that Linda Bastone, who's sitting next to me, and I have been doing over the past few years. But if it's not relevant or you want us to go in another direction, just type in, please go this way, and we'll switch course. Basically, we've been interested in using portfolios within the context of a summer research program for community college students. So this is a picture from 2 summers ago. There's actually 2 programs that are folded into one that have, between the 2 of them, have had about 40 students a summer. So half the students are doing science research for about 40 hours a week. The other half are doing an interdisciplinary course on identity for half of each day, and then doing an individual research project for the other half. They're all community college students. They come from either underrepresented minority groups, low-income groups, or first generation. And the objective of both programs is degree completion. We first began using portfolios in an effort to document applied learning. So we were working with the Lumina Foundation to try and find a way to document the degree qualification profile applied learning outcome. And so that's why we started using the portfolios. Because we built reflection in right from the beginning, and because our long-term work with the program has led us to focus on identity shift as a mechanism of increasing persistence, that was something that sort of naturally was built into the students' portfolio work from the beginning. But our primary goals, besides supporting reflection, were to try and capture the progress that they were making during the summer in a way that potentially could be used for assessment within the program and potentially long-term credit evaluation, because schools have become increasingly interested in whether a student can do something like an intensive research experience and then bring that back and convert it into credit. We presented the portfolios to the students as an academic Facebook exercise, talking to them a lot about the value of creating a different identity, and that, you know, over the course of the summer they would be building this academic identity, and that their e-portfolio would be a place to showcase that new emerging identity. Here are just some of the pages students created. The students had a 1 to 2 hour workshop each week. This was a science student, and I don't know how much you can see of this, but there's, you know, a social picture of the student. She has some of her research abstracts. She's reflecting on her week in the second week in the program, and then she starts off just by describing herself. This is one of the identity course portfolio pages, and obviously these are just snapshots, but it just gives you a feel for the kind of things students were doing. This one we loved because this was a student who was doing a lab science project. She couldn't put her lab notebook in. She took all of her notes on her research by hand in that black notebook, so she took a picture of it and put it in. And this is another identity course student. So the assessment that we have done is we had faculty assess students' learning, both based on their personal interactions with the student and based on the portfolio alone in 2012. When we just compared portfolios to, you know, first-hand knowledge of the students plus portfolios, not surprisingly, the e-portfolios didn't really add a lot and were insufficient to assess some of the learning outcomes that the DQP included. Now we've asked naive faculty to evaluate just the portfolios, and we're comparing the naive faculty evaluations to the faculty who actually knew the student. And we'll be presenting that work actually at the AAC and U e-portfolio session in January. But sort of the preview is, although you can't assess all areas of learning, all areas of applied learning, there definitely are parts of the applied learning outcomes that can be documented and can appear to be, even somebody who doesn't know the student can do that on the basis of the portfolio alone. The other thing that we were interested in, and this is sort of more a little further out there, oh sorry, what do I mean by naive? So what we just completed was we had previously asked a faculty member who had worked with the students for 5 weeks to evaluate the student based on their e-portfolio and their personal knowledge, and then based just on their personal knowledge. We found from that those experienced evaluators were better able to evaluate the student based on their personal knowledge, and that the e-portfolio didn't add. So last summer we asked naive, meaning people who did not know the student and had not worked with the student, evaluators to go and look at the portfolios alone, and then we compared their evaluations using the same rubrics to the evaluations of the person's mentor. And we found that on many of the outcomes, the naive evaluator appeared able to determine whether the work was credit worthy without knowing the student. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. So the other thing we've been doing, and we presented this last year at the ePortfolio session, is looking at identity development across students' ePortfolios. And so, this slide just shows the methods, but we're interested in these three things, which we've been interested in for a while. So the first
just a quick
Hi, Keith. I don't know if anyone's able to hear, but we're having trouble hearing at this point.
I think right now nobody is saying anything because we are just waiting for Keith and his colleagues to come back on. So that's why there was silence.
Christina, thanks for helping to be our tech detective. We'll wait for them. While we're waiting, thanks so much to all of you for your good conversations in the chat area. Roger, I liked your idea about copying the page or collection for assessment. That might be something we could do in the short term while we're waiting for upgrades and other integrations to help us cobble together a relationship between Mahara and Blackboard. But your suggestion is a good one, and it's just great to have these kind of suggestions with a group like this. It helps us to evolve our program and, gather the expertise in the room, so to speak. So it's just great to have all the idea sharing here. Yeah. Keith, if your area is having trouble, we could move on if that would be helpful, or we can wait. Let us know what's best for you. Okay, looks like Keith might suggest that we come back to them. It's really fascinating, a fascinating update from SUNY Purchase. It sounds like your team is doing great work. We really appreciate what you shared so far, so we welcome your jumping back in. We were taking notes furiously. I really liked some of your work on identity development, and certainly we've also tried to present ePortfolio like an academic Facebook. And so it's just great to, again, hear some of the strategies and approaches you're using so close by, really, right down the road from us. Okay, so Keith, if you want, we can give our update. We were going to share a couple of templates. I believe you have those to make available. I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. So as I mentioned, we wanted some of the focus today to be on assessment and templates. And we've done a lot of template work at PACE. I hope you can all hear me, by the way. Can everyone hear? Great. Okay. Thanks,
Yes.
Allie.
Yes.
Okay, great. And one of our new initiatives that just started this fall is called the PACE Path. And we're really excited because it's an initiative for all our incoming first-year students. So what this means for us, it's been a hurdle we've been unable to pass up until this year. We now have all first-year students expected to use ePortfolio. And they are expected to use, in particular, this template that we've built into Mahara. And it's been challenging because, of course, for us, this isn't like a fully evolved, dynamic, multimedia ePortfolio, more like a checklist, but it's still a gateway into ePortfolios for us. And it's a way that we're working with our UNV 101 faculty and their peer leaders to get students to upload evidence in each of these areas, showing that students can manage themselves and interpersonal relations and have awareness about organizations and communities, etc. And it's a 4-year plan, but this particular page is designed for the first year, and it's supposed to help our students make the transition to PACE and also get connected with strong advisement because we're really trying to improve our retention overall and help our students really transition to PACE and succeed. So this is one of the ways that we're doing it. We're thrilled that ePortfolio has a strong anchor now in our first year initiative, and we wanted to share it with this group in talking about templates because, you know, I think some of you have also done some work with templates, perhaps for career work or assessment work, accreditation, etc., and we thought it might be interesting to share this first year template with all of you. We also have another template. I see that keeps asking questions. Yeah, this template is designed to cover the first year, and the 4-year plan that's under organizational awareness. Well, yeah, some items will be the second semester as well, but the 4-year plan is preliminary. It's expected that it will evolve, but the idea is to get students to be thinking more longer term, even as they begin. And although that these items will evolve and change, the idea is to get them thinking in each of these categories during their first semester. We could switch, go to the next slide, Keith, if you don't mind. And Linda, my colleague Linda, is here, and she's going to talk about another template that we have been working with.
And the next template is for all writing classes. It's the English.
Maybe we can do it.
Here it is.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess with both these templates, the caveat is that we meaning the ePortfolio team, didn't really have much input into the design of the template, but we certainly are supporting every effort of having students use ePortfolio. And this would be all students in our writing program, which covers 2 freshman writing courses, English 110 and English 120, and then the upper level Writing in the Disciplines course, English 201. So it's a way that students can upload their work as they are doing it in some ways, in some instances for formative assessment, as Roger was talking about before, and also for end of semester assessment purposes, where we have reviewers who go in and randomly sample a number of student e-portfolio documents and use a checklist and see how students are doing in terms of their writing skills, and hopefully making progress. And then at the end of English 201, even transfer students can upload papers. Keith, you asked about 201. Ideally, yes, but it doesn't really necessarily work that way. We do target certain sections of English 201 for psych majors, business majors, but we haven't been successful in doing that. So it's more generic. It depends on the individual professor in terms of how he or she actually designs the course. But the focus is on research that students do according to their disciplines, majors, and interests. And so we just started this last semester was the first time that this was used as a pilot, and of course it's going to take a while to get all faculty up to speed and students up to speed. The sample was a little smaller than we would have liked to get really good data last semester, because there was a problem. There's still a problem we have with permissions, that students are still not sharing their work. And now, hopefully, this is going to get easier. And also just getting faculty up to speed and getting the buy-in from all the adjuncts that teach these courses. But we're very excited about, first of all, the fact that so this again will be all students, really, first year. Not only will they be using ePortfolio in the University 101 class, but they will also be using ePortfolio in their writing classes.
Great. Thanks, and thanks for all the comments and questions in the chat. It's terrific. We want to, because we're coming short on time, I'd like to turn it back over to our City Purchase friends so they could, yeah, thanks, Keith. I want to give them the chance to get back.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear us now?
Woohoo! Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna.
Okay.
Oh.
We're right there. Yeah.
Okay. So, did I go out before you heard about this slide?
They heard a little. They heard a little.
Okay. So we looked at 61 students from 2 years who had done at least 3 journal entries across the 5 weeks of our summer program. And we were looking for 3 types of identity development in those students and to see whether they changed over time. The first 2 were something we'd looked at previously. We've been doing this program for over 10 years now. And so that was this idea of a developing sense of oneself as an academic. So references to scholarly thoughts or accomplishments, like I did a great job in the lab today, or I really think our research is important, things like that. The second group was future orientation, and this could be future academic or non-academic orientation. So statements like I'm going to make a difference in the world, I'm going to be a biologist, anything like that. And then the third were the most interesting because they actually emerged from the ePortfolios. We hadn't really seen them previously. And this was references to relationships in the context of learning. So this was stuff like, my lab group is doing really important work, or me and my classmates have developed a place where we can all share our ideas and build our understanding together. We looked at every clause within the journal entries for this coding, and clauses could be coded as belonging to multiple categories. So for example, I'm going to do better in school next year is both a future orientation reference and an academic identity reference. And what you can see here very quickly is there were significant improvements between week 1 and week 5. So dark blue is week 1, or their initial journal entry, and light blue is their final journal entry, which generally came from week 5. And so over the course of a 5-week intensive program, students in their portfolios showed increasing references to academic identity, future orientation, and scholarly community. And then above each pair of columns, I've reported the correlation in scores between the first and final journal entry. And what you can see is students who had a strong academic identity coming into the program continued to have a strong academic identity. So there was a strong correlation there between initial and final scores. Whereas the other two, it appears more that they actually were developing over the course of the program, and one's initial score did not influence one's final score. So, in terms of the relevance of this stuff to the broader community, Linda and I are really interested in looking at the reflective elements of portfolios to see whether there's evidence of identity shift that could be related to increased persistence. And so, that's sort of our next step, is looking to see whether students who develop stronger future orientation in particular, but also academic identity and sense of scholarly community, are more likely to persist when they hit challenging courses. So, this is just a summary. We think that the e-portfolios are useful in terms of documenting applied learning, and we'll be presenting more information on that in January. We think that they are definitely useful as a means of documenting changes over time, so looking for shifts in identity as well as academic quality of work. And we think the reflective aspect of portfolios may be something that is really ripe for sort of assessment in and of itself. So as I already mentioned, we're planning on following the students longitudinally to see whether they go back to their summary portfolios and to see what happens to students, individual students, in terms of persistence and maintaining a sense of scholarly identity. We have a few other little projects going on right now. Next semester, I'm reworking my introductory level child development course to make it without any tests, but purely based on an e-portfolio in which the students will be reflecting on and applying child development findings to their own development or the development of a child that they're interested in. And in answer to a question, it is published in a paper, and the link is the very next slide. And the work that we're presenting at the ePortfolio Forum, we will be submitting to the International Journal of ePortfolios. So we're hopeful that that will be published in a paper also. So there's the child development course. This semester, Linda and I are running a social action learning community for transfer students. And in that, we are having the students do reflective writings on a weekly basis, which they are putting together into a portfolio. And so we'll be very curious to see whether we see similar changes. The population in this learning community is quite similar to the population in our intensive summer programs, and so we're curious to see whether we'll see similar changes in identity in those students. Did I forget anything? And then these are the links. The bottom link is the International Journal of ePortfolios, and the top link is a briefer article in Diversity and Democracy that's on the identity shift work. So sorry about the interruption, and thanks. Oh, launch to launch.
Yeah. Great work. Thank you so much, Karen and Linda. That's really terrific, and I look forward to reading those articles as well to learn more. I really appreciate it. We are short on time, but I believe we do have enough time to hear from Roger again, if you're ready, Roger, to share your new theme and embedded help modules. I know that's something we could all use some more help modules. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Right. What I was going to talk about, I've lost track now because I was starting looking at that paper. Let me just get this off. I've got this in a PowerPoint actually. What we've done is done some work on both the language and the help files, and I talked to Christina at some point else. So she was saying, "Oh, you can do stuff with local files. How do you do that?" We've also come to some fruition with our idea of what how see, which you can see is the help icon next to the CV builder there. So first up, how do we change the language? Slightly techie, but I'll zoom through this and I can explain in detail to people that need to know more. Basically, in your Mahara on your server, there's a directory called local. In there, you can put files which overwrite the system file. The advantage of this is you don't need to change any core code at all. You simply put files in your local. So what happens, the system loads its normal help files or language files, and then it overwrites those with your specific code. For the UK, we use the word CV instead of resume, so that's the language there. If I go to the next page, where do you find the files? They've got some really strange file formats and namings and so on. If you look in the URL, you will see artifact resume index. Well, that's what you need to have there, artifact resume PHP. So that's the language file and how to change it. As I said, I can do detail for anyone who wants to know more. Next was the help files. So as you can see, we've changed the icon. I'll talk about that in a minute. And our help file brings up this nice little sort of what, how, see, which was our concept based on some of the stuff Beth had done in earlier conversations in this group. So we came up with this concept of what do I do on this page, how do I do it, and let me see an example. So this is simply the profile one. And we followed that theme all the way through. So how do we do that? Again, it's in the local directory and down a few bits and bobs, and you end up writing your own local help files, which overwrite the system ones. Again, because it's a local directory, every time you do an upgrade, you simply replace the local directory files, and that's it. You don't have to touch core code. So it doesn't make the developers sweat too much, and you can see here the code we've put in. Again, where do you put it? Artifact, internal, index PHP, and you can see that's the file name you have to create and write. Finally, how did we change that icon? Because if you look at the bottom icon circled in red, you can see that the icon, I will answer questions, I've got full screen at the moment, so there's some chat questions I need to answer. The icon down there is that small I icon, which is the same as what was up the top. That again is done in the theme, and just very quickly and hopefully not too techy, the top purple line there says display none, and that just basically hides the existing icon from view, doesn't delete it, just hides it from view, and then we replace it with our own icon, and that's all we've done, and that's done in our theme. So those few lines of code, the rest of it just tidies up position and size and so on and so forth. So that's basically that. Let me just get out of this 1 second and zoom over to it in action. So there's our, this was a code change, by the way. The home page we have adjusted slightly and made it look a bit more pretty. So we had to change one thing in the index. But now you see it reading, hopefully. So you can say, what is my portfolio? How do I do assessment and see? And if I go into any of these areas now, so for instance, content, and roll over that. It's slightly slow loading, I'm afraid. I'm on a bit of a rubbish connection. We should end up with the icons loading that you saw earlier. I'm afraid they're not loading. I think it's because I've got on to connect. So let me just go back into here and see if there's any questions. I'll stop sharing so I know other people want to line up their stuff. So other people can line up and I can answer questions in the chat room. There, and I'll share that PowerPoint with you in a minute. I had problems uploading. I've just upgraded to Windows 8.1 and it's all broken, so I'll do that in a minute. Yeah, so any other questions, please shout in the chat room and I'll let the next person talk, unless you want to look at more after the meeting's over.
Thanks so much, Roger. I think you're our last speaker for today, and we're right about on ending on time, but I think this was a great meeting, a really nice mix of templates, assessment, research, so a little bit of tech talk at the end there, Roger, keeping us on our toes. And we have such a great turnout today from people all over. It's just, it's really nice. I really enjoy hearing from everybody, and I hope all of you did too. We have just a couple of minutes, so if folks want to hang out and pose questions in the chat, feel free. Thanks again to Keith for hosting through Adobe, and then he makes the video available that we can share through Facebook and the Mahara Wiki. And Christina has given us a few gentle prompts to share some of our templates and workflows through the Mahara Wiki as well. So I'd like us all to try to do that, because some of the absorbing this information takes a little longer than we can do in this 1 hour, but hopefully this kind of meeting stirs some ideas in each of us, and we can continue to collaborate after this meeting, you know, individually and collectively. And Linda's prompting me to ask when the next meeting will be. We've been trying to meet quarterly, about 4 times a year, and I feel like that works. If there's interest in meeting more, let me know. We're an informal group, but if I don't hear from anyone, then I guess we would look to schedule perhaps in January. Yeah. And pretty soon it'll be time to start thinking about ABLE again for next year, and I wonder if people in this group might want to start thinking about doing another type of presentation together. We had such a good run of it last year, and even had Roger and Sam join remotely. So if any of you have some ideas, the call isn't out yet, but it might be good to start thinking that over. Okay, I'm hearing late January might be good for our next meeting. Okay, so we'll look to schedule our next meeting in late January, but do hope to stay in touch through Facebook and the Mahara Wiki and other ways as we can. It's really a great group. Any last comments from anyone? Feel free to take the mic if you would like to say anything that way too. Yeah, Roger, we're hoping you could save up. We're giving you advance notice to start saving for ABLE next July. Okay, thanks all. Keith, if you don't mind just keeping the chat open for a few more minutes, that would be great. Otherwise, hope everyone has a good rest of the day or night, depending on where you are. Take care, everyone. Thanks for your contributions.
Bye.